Good evening. It is 6 o'clock, and I will call the January 28th, 2025 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. We do have a quorum with all members present. Tonight, we're blessed to have Pastor Richie Johnson from the First Church to provide the invocation. If you would, please rise and remain standing for the pledge.
Good evening, everybody. I guess it's Happy New Year's. This is my first time seeing you, so New Year's in order. If everyone would bow their head and close their eyes, we'll open up in prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your loving mercy. We're thankful that you're blessing this country, Lord, that you've opened up many doors for us, Lord, to rise us up. And I pray that with County, I pray that we would stand for the occasion. I pray that we would continue to lead and be an example to the other counties. We would be an example to the other regions. Let the hand of God be upon us. Bless us. Let us be a united people, a people that love one another, and a people that can love those that may be very difficult to love. We thank you, Lord, for your many blessings and the future blessings that you hold for Wythe County. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the first item on our agenda tonight is a presentation of a retirement plaque. We didn't do a resolution because Stacy said he didn't want to hear all the whereases, and Mr. Barry and Martha said that I tend to get a little long-winded with people I know. And we appreciate our retirees and their service to Wythe County. We celebrated Rick Stoneman here a while back, and Rick was, absolute rock star from Wythe County. But there's not every night that you get to recognize somebody that's been shot at, spit on, hit, pepper sprayed. I've done that. There's actual video evidence, and I tried to get that downloaded, but I couldn't. But tonight, we honor somebody that spent 27 years of his life doing that for the citizens of Wythe County, and that's Captain Stacy Dixon. Stacy. There's a lot of stuff I can say, but all I'll say is thank you. My wife told me not to cry. But Stacy held a lot of roles at the Wythe County Sheriff's Office, and I'll never forget when this board decided to put a school resource officer in every school, and I spent several years as school resource officer, and I heard, hey, we're going to put Stacy over, and I went, oh my God. That is horrible. That's a horrible decision. Who made that decision or whatever? The man absolutely changed school security in Wythe County. He worked with the school board and the superintendent, and he got floor plans, he got emergency plans, and our children are better and safer because of you. And our children that become deputies that you mentored and trained are better because of you. And like I said, that there's no whereas. You got old, you decided to retire, and I hope I get that place. So, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, thank you.
just one quick word. These guys are the reason that I could retire. But I get upset because it means a lot to me. But these guys voted in some stuff in the last 4 or 5 years, thanks to the sheriff pushing and everybody, but these guys voted in stuff that allowed me to retire. While I'm still alive, I don't have the rest of my life anymore, but I'm very happy to retire. I spent many years, 31 total, as a law enforcement officer. 27 of it here, and I don't regret 1 minute of it. And I thank y'all, and I thank everybody in Wythe County. Thank you.
Now, I enjoyed that part about when I pepper sprayed you. And we did get you a gift. Don't sell it at your booth.
Is it worth it?
Well, hey, we've done a little bit better. Now, Allison's got to take pictures.
I do.
And, you know, I really have enjoyed, working with Stacy. I miss him, and, I wish he'd come back, but I don't think I can. I'm pretty good at pulling stuff off, but I don't think I can do that within the trees.
Love it.
And, everybody in uniform, y'all can exit now, because y'all got stuff to do. I don't know, Mr. Bear, I think we might need to go back to that resolution. I think I'll do better, get through it better.
Very well presented, though.
The next item on our agenda is citizens' time. We don't have any citizens signed up, so I will close citizens' time and move on to the payment of invoices. Each board member has received in their package a copy of the invoices that need to be paid, and I will entertain a motion to approve those invoices.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry, a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion or any invoice that any board member wants to pull out? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item on our agenda is the minutes of our previous meeting from January the 14th, 2025. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Burnett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Morgan. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Move on to old business. The first item we have is the retreat lake rates, and I believe we have Miss Halfley.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Sorry that I am here and Mr. Williams is not. He actually has a family emergency tonight, so he cannot be here. I'm just here to answer any questions that you guys have.
And you handed out
Yes.
this sheet.
At your last meeting, you asked us to bring back a comparison of the rates, casting a wider net with some of the other campgrounds. Ms. Halfley and Mr. Williams have put together that comparison, and we're asking that you adopt the rates that we presented to you at your last meeting.
Mr. Hankins or Miss Halfley, what, and I don't see it listed, what was the rate that was introduced for retreat?
So the days for primitive are $32, and then for RV sites it would be $44. That is the recommended increase.
And I know that there was some question about it, but now that we've got, now that we've got the comparison, is there, I'll open the floor up for any discussion.
I appreciate you all getting these rates to us.
Of course.
I still don't love it, but I'm not gonna argue over a few dollars. I just, outdoor recreation in the county is super important to me, and I just hope people can still enjoy it. And I think, $48 a week jump is kind of steep, but you all have done your research, so I'm fine with it.
And, I mean, looking at, the comparison numbers and the improvements that we've made out there and the improvements that we need to continue to make, I don't have a problem with it. My biggest issue was to make sure that people that have made reservations, we're gonna honor those. And I think that's the right thing to do. Costs have come up, personnel costs have come up, the improvements we've made at the pool, and I know that, they're looking at bathhouses and all that. I don't have a problem with it.
And something I wasn't aware of, I didn't know that we did 10% discount for Wythe County citizens, so that's,
And I didn't realize that
Yeah.
either. I'm glad you brought that up.
so that's a big deal to me, so.
So, does anybody else have any issues or
We're
discussion?
higher than all other federal and state counties.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare like apples to apples, so it's primitive tent camping compared to just primitive tent camping at like Foster Falls, Claytor Lake, Smith Mountain Lake, we are higher, but those are state-owned. I mean, I get it. I get that there's a difference as far as costs going up, like Mr. Vault said, personnel and everything. I mean, we can only do what we can do, so.
And, this may have been something that we could have addressed, over the years at smaller rate increases. However, the state, would not give us a long-term lease, for that property for several years, oddly enough, until the, I guess, first or second week of, Governor Youngkin's term with Attorney General Mieres, and then all of a sudden, boom, they agreed to it. So, we pretty much did the best we could. So, that's where I'm at. I don't have an issue with it, and we'll look at the numbers, and if we get complaints, we'll come back and discuss it further. But as it sits now, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and if we get complaints, we have the comparison, so we can,
So, I'll entertain a motion to approve the rate increases as presented.
So,
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any further discussion or questions for Ms. Halfley? And just before, not necessarily related to the rates, but before we do a vote, I just want to thank Ms. Halfley, for her work out there. I'm out there a lot.
I don't know if you wanna be most of the time that you're out there.
Well, sometimes it's work related, but I ride out there a lot, and Miss Halfley has been an absolute rock star, with her work out there. And compared to what it looked like in the operations before, she come on board, you made a notable difference. And, so I just wanna say thank you.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, with that being said, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry, I'll start with you.
aye.
I'm sorry, aye. Sorry.
So approved. All right, the next item on old business is appointments. Mr. Bear, is that you?
Yeah, the first one is Building Code Appeals Board. I think y'all have about 4 names that have come out there in the process. However you all wish to proceed on that.
I had J.R. Gilman is interested and said he'd like to serve on that board, Mr. Chairman.
No, can you put that in the form of a motion?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Mr. J.R. Gilman to the Contractor Appeals Board, sir.
All right, we have a motion for Mr. J.R. Gilman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion on that? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved. And that takes care of one. I think we've got 2, correct?
Correct. Either Mr. Apsher can be reappointed, or you can appoint one of the other members, however you all wish to proceed.
And I believe he indicated that he was interested in being reappointed. Is there a motion from the floor?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Mr. Absher.
All right, have a motion to reappoint Mr. Absher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burnett. Is there any questions or discussion on that? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved. What's next, Mr. Burnett?
JIDA.
And do we have any, I know that's been tossed around.
There's been some names thrown around. I know a couple of y'all have talked to some people.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we appoint Bobby Angles to the JIDA board.
All right, have a motion by Ms. Lawson to appoint Mr. Bobby Angles
Yes, sir.
to the JIDA board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion on that appointment? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved. The
Next is the Mountain Cap Board, which Mountain Cap is under Hope, but they still have a Mountain Cap Board, and it would be best to look at appointing someone to that. Ms. Jones can be reappointed to that position.
All right, right, I'll entertain a motion, well, I'll open the floor up for a motion.
Has anybody talked to Ms. Jones?
I have to.
I assume so.
You did?
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we reappoint Ms. Rachel Jones.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second. I'm sorry, Dee.
Had like
Second.
3 seconds. I'll give that to Ms. Lawson. Got a second by Ms. Lawson. Any questions or discussion on that one? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved. Next, we've got the People Incorporated Ninth District Development Financing. It was Ms. Pollard. I know she has changed careers or changed positions within her career.
Yeah, and Ms. Collins did reach out to the development financing. They are still, from what I understand, looking for a representative. I don't have any names for you at this time. I'll see if we can get more information and share with you. I'll see if you'll have any names.
So we'll
I'd
just
recommend
leave
just
that
leave
one.
it as it is for now.
All right. Anything else under old business?
I have nothing, sir.
All right. Next, we've got the consent calendar that you've all received in your board package. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Have a motion by Mr. Morgan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Burnett. Any questions or discussion on that one? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So approved. Next, we have an introduction of our extension agent, who should be familiar with several of us.
Good evening. Thank y'all for having us tonight. I think it was around this time last year that Ethan, our agriculture agent, and myself came and introduced ourselves. And today I'm really happy to introduce our new coworker, Miss Haley Rose Sample. So I'm gonna let her tell you a bit about herself, and she also has a handout I'll give to you as she's talking.
All right, as Mr. Ball said, most of you might recognize me. I am a local here in Wytheville. I grew up here my entire life. I started in the 4-H program here in Wythe County at the age of 9, which is when you can start. You can start in the clover bud age, but normally it starts around when you're 9 years old. I competed in dramatic reading with Junie B. Jones. I competed in a presentation on some delicious butterscotch bars. And then I moved on to be a camper, a CIT, a team counselor, and so I spent my time doing a lot of community service, fundraising, different things like that, because I was in the local team club here in Wythe County 4-H, and then I graduated out of that program and I went to Virginia Tech, which is where I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and then I left Virginia Tech, and while I was at Virginia Tech, I actually worked at the Southwest Virginia 4-H Educational Center, where I spent 2 summers on summer staff there. So I'm there for 10 weeks. I see every county that they serve, and they serve 13 counties. So I got to do that and have that opportunity. And while I was there, I became the rifle instructor and got my certification to teach children how to shoot rifles. And I have that certification for the next 5 years. And then I went on after graduating from Virginia Tech and went on to Liberty Online, and I got my master's degree in elementary education. Once I obtained that, I was about a class away, and I took a job in Lee County. I was their 4-H agent for about 9 months. So I have experienced this and dipped my toes into it a little bit before. But then, due to living with my grandparents, I wanted to come back home to be closer to my grandpa because he's about 70 years old. And so Wythe County Public Schools offered me a position, and I came and I taught kindergarten there for about 1.5 years. And loved it. It was awesome, but I just knew that if there was a 4-H job that came available, that I would take it because it had been my dream job to do that, and even more when it was coming from my county and the program that I grew up in. And so you can see from the pamphlet that you got, I've talked about the current 4-H programs that we have going on, like summer camp. We have a livestock club, we have a Barron Springs 4-H club, and then I have an agricultural careers presentation set up at WCC on March the 22nd. And then you can also see for my future 4-H programs, I want to get back in the schools to do those presentations that I did when I was little. I want to get started with some 4-H projects. I want to get started with some clubs like the teen club that I grew up in as well. I just took a trip to the 4-H Day at the Capitol myself, and I'm hoping to take kids next year. And then, of course, summer day camps of varying activities. And then my contact information is there, or if you all have any questions for me today, I'm happy to answer any of them.
Does anybody have any questions for Haley? I got a couple.
I was just gonna say, we're excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm very excited to work with you.
I don't have a question, but
Okay.
for the last about 3 years, I've
Mm-hmm.
worked with Mallory, that she's of course gone, to do the May Day.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I will be certainly emailing you
Yeah,
to start,
absolutely.
because
I'm
that's just
excited
right
about
around
it.
the corner, and I have really enjoyed working with them and the 4-H to provide horses and livestock for that event, so.
Okay. Well, thank you. I look forward to that.
And I'll just say that a lot of people, when they hear 4-H, they think about kids that grew up on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't you.
No, I was not. I was not the agricultural side. So there is a whole other side to it. There's a
And
side.
it's very interesting that you got into 4-H, because 4-H is so much more than kids that grew up on a farm.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, your grandpa grew up on the golf course. I see him every now and then. He's way ahead of me as far as the tees, because you know he's got a few years on me. But it is just it's exciting that somebody that didn't grow up on a farm found a place, and I mean 4-H has got a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah, it does. And I'm not afraid to go on the farm either. I did it in Lee County. It's experience I have to learn, but I'm willing to learn.
So well, welcome. Does anybody else have anything? I'm sorry.
I just wanna know where the butterscotch candy was at, you mentioned there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Didn't make that tonight, but it is.
wait a
good.
minute. As much weight as you've lost, I know better than
I can splurge.
that. You can't. No, but welcome. if you need anything, you know how to contact us, and we're happy to have you back home.
Yes.
So,
Thank you guys so
Welcome
much.
back.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Fort Chisholm South Sewer Extension Project Resolution. Do we need to read this for the record, or can I just throw it up for a vote so Mr. Smith can make the motion?
Yes.
All right, we've all received the resolution for the Fort Chisholm South Sewer Extension Project, Resolution 2024-28, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
How'd I know? Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Morgan. Is there any questions or discussion on that resolution?
Sure you don't need to read it?
Uh,
Sure you don't need to read it?
Mr. Smith made the motion. If he wants to read it,
We good.
I'll open the floor. All right, hearing, well, we're a little salty tonight. We need to calm down. All right. Have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved. I'll sign that when I get a chance, Mr. Smith. No, it's, much needed, and I think we're all glad to vote for that and get it moving forward. All right, we'll move on to staff reports. I believe we have, Deputy County Administrator, Mr. Hankins.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If you don't mind, I'll go a little bit out of order. I handed out a memorandum before the meeting about fire department call-out funds. This is a budgeted amount that you set aside every year to reward the members of your volunteer fire departments for their response. Some of the departments will pay it out to their members for running calls. Some will turn around and use the funds to support other operations within the departments. This year, the amount is $40,000, and our recent policy has been to pay this out on a calendar year basis, and that gives us a full year of data of calls that we're able to use as the basis for paying this out. And so we've been giving everybody a base amount, that we take half of the amount that you have budgeted and provide an equal share of that to your fire departments. And then the other half of the budgeted amount, we apportion on a call volume basis. Max Meadows is our busiest station, so the number that you see there is the larger number. The other departments are fairly close in the number of calls they run. Everybody got an inflated number of calls this year because of the hurricane, but we think this is still representative of where your departments are in terms of their call volume. So I would ask that you authorize the staff and the finance department to release the payouts to the fire departments this week.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion about the request? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
My second action item is the Emergency Operations Plan. This is a plan that we're required to have by the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's administered by the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. And they've been working with Mr. Zook to develop an updated emergency operations plan that is compliant with state and federal regulations, because that's one of the mechanisms that they will use to make sure that when we have a disaster that we're eligible for federal funding. They'll look at our operations plan and make sure that we're compliant. So there is some language in there that we don't particularly like or that we want to include, but the state requires us to do it, and so we have included it to the best of our ability in a way that we think is reflective of Wythe County. We have cut the plan down. It was close to 150 pages. It's now 127. It's about as far as we could get it down and still meet all the required information. It has 17 functional areas for emergency response, different areas that are addressed by different responsible parties. Everything from how you deal with animals in shelters to how we evacuate people and how we respond in emergencies. So there's a great deal in there. You all have had close to a month now to take a look at it. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. If I've left anything out, Mr. Zook can fill you in. I would have guessed that.
All right, is the board ready to take action and approve the emergency operations plan?
I'd like to make a couple comments.
Go ahead.
The language you were referring to, that was one of the first things I spotted. And I'm afraid that's gonna come back and bite us eventually.
I agree, and what Mr. Morgan's referring to is what we would normally refer to as a DEI statement or a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. The state requires us to have some sort of DEI statement as part of this, and so the language that we've crafted essentially says, we don't care what you look like, who you are, if you are in an emergency, we're gonna help you. That's as good as we can make it. But I agree, because the motivation behind that makes it look like this is a new thing, that you weren't going to act that way before. And those of us who work in emergency services, whether it's law enforcement, EMS, fire, we don't care. We show up, we don't ask what color you are, what color your hair is, where you grew up, where you went to college. We'll pull you out even if you went to Hampton, Sydney. So,
Mr. Hankins, from this chair, I think it's valid. I had a gentleman years ago, Kent Bone, that told me, he said, treat people the way you want to be treated until they won't let you. And, if you want to do a diversity statement, that's what the state ought to require to be put in. And that's, unfortunately, the state and the federal government, have a big voice for groups that don't have a lot of money. We've discussed it on the, educational funding and different funding. They don't give a lot of money, but they like to give a lot of directive.
There you go.
I agree with Mr. Morgan, but it is what it is.
And I think one thing's important here, it's not dealing with anything with hiring or anything like that. It's really just in the services we provide.
Well, I didn't know that we ever needed a statement.
I agree with you.
I don't know that that's ever come up, but apparently somebody somewhere thinks that, maybe it's another county that did have a problem. I've never known it to be a problem in Wythe County. If you call 911, you're going to get 911.
Somebody showing up.
It is certainly possible, given the recent executive order from the Office of the President, that
Now,
we may see
I
some
doubt that'll
language
be in
changing.
there next year. But,
Exactly.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I assume that, and I read through this thing, there's a lot of language in there, which is necessary. That we have all contingencies covered, or as best you can.
Trying to remember which football coach said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Mike Tyson.
We have planned as best we can. That there is no possible way for us to cover every contingency, but this gives us a broad scope in how we address it. Every plan is going to be different, and every reaction is going to be different, but this at least gives us the basis for how we're supposed to start. So I can't promise you that we're going to be able to stick to this exactly this way every time, but it at least gives us some footing to work from.
I guess what brought that up was everything's happened in California.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Not thinking ahead.
Well, the one thing, the one thing we've got up on California is we've actually got water and we use it.
True
Talk about that.
We got multiple sources
Yeah.
of water.
I don't know if we need to highlight that in the plan, but if you turn a hydrant on in Wythe County, water actually comes out.
That's all I had.
So, Mr. Hankins, what, How often are we gonna look at this and update it? Is it yearly?
We must update it at least every 4 years, but it's like our comprehensive plan. If something comes up that we need to change, we can adjust it, and that resets the clock. So if we come back and look at it again next year, then we've got another 4 years after that.
All right, does anybody else have any questions? And just, are you ready to approve it, or do you wanna?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Morgan, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Other items, we've talked some about land use classification. You've had folks here asking for some form of zoning to create some buffers against solar and deal with some other issues that may come up. You've received a draft of that ordinance and a draft map. I think we're going to ask you to recess to have a joint work session with the Planning Commission to discuss that in February. And then you have asked, specifically, Mr. Chairman, you have asked, and we've had some other discussion with the Emergency Communications Center Board about putting out a request for proposals for dispatch CAD system, computer-aided dispatch system. We have developed that. I circulated it to the Emergency Communications Center Board today with the intent to put it out tomorrow or Thursday. If we can get it out this week, then we'll get responses back in time for you to consider that as part of your budget discussions this year.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hankins on those items? All right, anything else, Mr. Hankins?
I do have in there that we have a couple of ambulances that have been out for repair. One was getting warranty work and one was getting a new transmission. Both of those ambulances came back in this morning, so we are back to full fleet on ambulances now. So we've got one of those that still has to be stocked, but we'll be back to full fleet. So we've been running a little thin, but we haven't had any issues.
And the you put in there about the HVAC that was installed at Max Meadows and Speedwell Station. Is that heat and air?
Yes, sir. It's it's gas furnaces for heat, so that we'll use the propane there, and then it does have the cooling for the summers.
Okay. And does that bring us up to every station?
Yes, sir. The other stations had already put in HVAC. I believe they'd done that on their own. I don't think the county funded that. I think the departments funded that, some years ago. That does bring up that I should probably ask the age of those. I don't know the age of those other systems that have been in longer. We do have some capital money this year that if those are older systems that we need to look at replacing, I think this would be a good year for us to consider.
Well, that was one question, or that was a question I was headed toward, because I know Mr. Sayers had inventoried all our HVAC units on the county bills and put us up on a replacement plan instead of waiting on one of them to go out because, during COVID, apparently they quit making them. And, we had to wait weeks, but that was where I was going with that. So if we could just look at that or have Landon look at it and maybe include that on his timeline for replacement.
Chief Parnell and I and Mr. Sayers are going out to look at all the stations this week. I think we're going Thursday, if I remember right. So we're going to inventory some of those issues. I know some of the stations have gutters and windows and some other issues that we need to address. So we're going to try to get an inventory of those so we can get them all done this spring.
And the only other thing I would ask is, and I know it's it's a different situation, but, you know, we have an agreement with Wythe. They own the building, but Retreat's not listed on that. And I know the town of Retreat, owns that property, but, in an emergency, shelter situation, I don't know that the citizens care who owns the property. If that's a site that we need to look at putting HVAC in, you know, I don't know, and off the top of my head, and Mr. Zook may know, I don't know if they've got gas heat or what they've got. I don't. Is it electric?
The one thing, that is an approved, American Red Cross shelter site, so we're good there, so we can use it as shelter. The one thing we don't have is a generator backup to that station also. So if I had to make a, if you wanna use it for that, we may need to look at that too. There is grant money out there for that generator.
Well, I'd request that we look at getting that, just, you know, if the HVAC piece is good, and we need to look at, you know, the backup generator, let's look at that, especially if there's grant money available.
Yeah, there's grant money, and I did, it does have a heat pump.
Oh, okay. All right, does anybody else have anything for Mr. Hankins?
No.
Mr. Hankins, you have anything else?
No, sir.
All right, move on to County Administrator's Report, Mr. Bear.
Yes, first thing I would request you all approve the attached contract amendment for the minimum wage increase with R.G. Childress. Landon and I met with them last week, and they are in agreement with this amendment. Minimum wage went from $12 to $12.41, so this basically just increased the rate by 41 cents by the number of hours that the center's open.
And that was built into the contract. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
we knew it was coming, so. All right, entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the contract with R.G. Childress.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Terry, a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any questions or discussion on that? Not necessarily related to the contract amendment, but I will say that I really appreciate the job that the Childresses are doing with these trash centers.
I took the
Very
opportunity while
impressive.
they were here and told them that the board had been very appreciative of the work they had done. They talked about some of the changes in personnel and procedures that they had to make, but I told them that appreciate it, and if there's any issues, we'll certainly let them know, but they've been very responsive. So,
All right, does anybody else have anything? All right, here and then we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett? Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Anything else, Mr. Bear?
yeah, I do have a resolution in support of data centers in the agenda. David Manley contacted me last week. As you all know, there's a lot of, I guess, buzz, for lack of a better word, about data centers in Virginia and in Southwest Virginia. And David Manley was just asked to confirm that they were in support of them. The JIDA passed a similar resolution last week that they were in support of data centers. Progress Park has been marketed for a long time. Mr. Smith may remember we put up giga site signs up there probably 10 years ago or so in the park. AEP was marketing this as a potential data center site. So I would request you all adopt this resolution, and we will send that to our legislators just to let them know that Wythe County has an industrial park out here, and we are in support of a data center.
And just to clarify that this resolution mentions a couple times Progress Park, which I'm totally in support of data centers in progress part. Not on farmland. So, just to clarify for everybody that's watching, don't look it up. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve 2024-29. Or should it be 2025-29?
It's changed for what you'll sign. We didn't
Yes.
touch that until after work happened out. It's got 2025.
I've done that since January 1st, no problem.
Well,
I've used more white out, so.
first two resolutions this year, so we did catch it after that. but
All right.
we got it, so.
So I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2025-29.
I would just make, if you'll just make a motion to approve the resolution, I think it'll be 02,
It'll be
because
02.
y'all just approved another one, which should have been 2501.
Yes, this one will be up to.
So moved.
What she said, and I've got a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion on that? Right, here and now, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
The rest is just informational items, Mr. Chairman. I do not have any action items. I'm glad to answer any questions.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Baird?
Yeah, I got a question. Surprise. Mr. Barrett, I know we've been talking a lot with FEMA about dry run down at Speedwell.
Yes.
I ran across a thing the other day. Somebody in Virginia got a hazardous mitigation grant from FEMA. And I was wondering if maybe we could look into that. Maybe we could get something to try to fix dry run so that we don't have the same problem we had this time.
We were certainly looking at it there. Mr. Zook and Mr. Parnell and I, we have received the notice of openings of some of the mitigation grants and reviewing what's available. Some of that is the generators and the things we're talking about for centers. Some of it is for preparation. We had previously looked at a project on, what's the road that we cleaned all the mud off of up there? Rudisill Road and Old Bank Road previously, tried to look at a project there. We will continue to look and see what we can find there. I did get an email this afternoon, Joe Costello. They are going to come in and meet with us next week to start talking about waterway debris removal. But we have not heard back from NRCS about any mitigation measures down at Speedwell where we walked the creek and looked at all of those areas. We've done follow-ups with them, but we are waiting for information on that. But yes, we will certainly look at it and see any type of mitigation grants that we can get to particularly mitigate that. And we've also, everybody we've met with, we've mentioned about the upstream development and making certain that none of their activities are increasing any level of flooding down in that area. I was actually in the creek yesterday morning, was over there with the FEMA, with the water department, looking at the repairs and discussing the long-term repairs on that yesterday.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Chairman.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Baird?
No, sir.
All right, county attorney report, Mr. Farthing.
Just one item, Mr. Chairman. There was, I guess still is a pending lawsuit against one of our animal control officers, Ms. Dolly. And the attorney for the insurance company that represents the county, notified her on Friday, and there's some communication with her or Matt today. The plaintiff in that case has decided to dismiss the case. So that should be dismissed shortly. It was filed in federal court or removed federal court at some point. To me, for actions that Ms. Dolly took that was within her purview in doing her job. But that notice came today. I just thought I'd share that with the board. So that case should be ended shortly. And that's all I have.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Farthing?
I do not.
we got board reports, we've got, water committee.
Yes, Chairman, the Water Committee met on January 21st, 2025, and recommends the following. Consenting to the Spielman, Thomas, and Battle Agreement to provide legal services for the New River Regional Water Authority. The authority is proposing changes to the service agreement to adjust the capacity allocations of the localities, update the service areas.
All right, come from committee, it doesn't require a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, I will just mention that the authority has elected to enter into this agreement with them. Webster Day has asked for us just to consent to this because he also represents us on bond issues and things like that. But he's always represented the New River Regional Water Authority since its formation. There is no conflict that we foresee in the process, but he requires, because Wytheville and Wythe County have used his services, that we consent to it. So that's why it's on your agenda.
All right, does that leave you any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved. Is that all from the water committee?
Yes, sir.
Well, while you got your microphone, we'll move on to board time, and we'll start with you, sir.
All right. I wanted to thank Mr. Parnell, Mr. Hankins, Mr. Bear for supplying information to Dreamer Johnston for looking into organizations to take donations. Can we reach out to VDOT and find out what kind of dirt road maintenance schedules they have for particularly scratch gravel, dry pond, and Greenbrier roads? And the last item was, do we have a list of dirt roads in the county that's left? I was trying to look on GIS, and
I do not know of a list that we have, but I will certainly check with VDOT and see if they can provide us a list of those roads, because they keep a surfaced and not surfaced, but I'm not aware of anything that we have in our records.
I know we had a 6-year plan coming up in the next month or so. And that's all I had, Chairman.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Lawson?
I have one quick item. Mr. Barrett, when you talk to VDOT, can you have them take a look at Atkins Mill Road? There's some spots that need to be paved between the water treatment plant and Whippoorwill. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Cook?
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Smith?
Mr. Barrett, while you're talking to VDOT, can you have them to look at Mike's Meadows Road from the red light at McDonald's to Pepps Ferry, and then from Pepps Ferry Road at that intersection to Cartersville Heights? There's some potholes that needs to be paved, and then the shoulder of the road's caving in several places, especially near the Mike's Meadows Fire Department where they're doing the logging or whatever on the Davis Farm.
So if you'll repeat both of those to me.
So
make sure.
Max
Red
Meadows
light.
Road from the red light at Circle K.
Yep.
All the way back over into Max Meadows to Pepps Ferry Road.
Okay.
And then from Pepps Ferry Road where they intersect at the railroad back to Cartersville Heights.
Okay.
That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, I've only got one thing. Have you heard any more about Cody Lane?
I sent you an email or late this afternoon. I believe I sent it to you. I'll double check. VDOT just sent me the information they had from 1964 when it was dedicated to the county, and then the county dedicated that to them, and they created a state maintained road on it. I did talk with them about it. They don't have a strong interest in vacating any of that right-of-way that was created 60 years ago to make that a state-maintained road, and that's why they provided me all the documentation of what happened to make that a state-maintained road. So, if they want to pursue it, for those who don't know, Cody Lane, where it breaks off, 60 years ago, the owner of the property conveyed additional right-of-way along with other owners back there to establish Cody Lane as a state-maintained road. Mr. Johnson has passed away, and family members of Mr. Johnson have apparently just become aware that that additional right-of-way was donated. And they don't necessarily like it and would like to get that land back. VDOT, has got the right-of-way all the way through there. We'd have to have further discussions with VDOT to make certain if they give that back, if that would mean that they would have to vacate that as a state-maintained road. And there are several property owners back in there and houses back in there behind it. Typically, when we do vacation of a right-of-way or a portion of the right-of-way, we have all the residents that are served by that right-of-way agreeing to sign off that they are not opposed to that vacation of right-of-way. And I recommend it's in the best interest of leaving that was established 60 years ago for the road, but I understand the family may wish to try to pursue that, and if so, we'll need to have some meetings with VDOT and review that in more detail.
That's all I had.
All right, Mr. Terry.
One thing I've got, Mr. Chairman, is I discussed with Mr. Bayer, Gap of the Ridge Road. I had a citizen reach out about that, and he's working on that. That's very much appreciated. And that is all I've got, sir.
Thank you, and Mr. Bear, while you, under the title of Gap of the Ridge Road, the curve, will you reach out to Mr. Schwartz and see if, and I know it's on the list to be hard surfaced, but see if they can look at putting some guardrail up. If they need examples of why, I can go back about 20-some years and give them multiple, good weather, bad weather, not a good curve. And I know unless things have changed, they've got that pot of money for that guardrail, and I know it doesn't have a lot of traffic, but it's definitely needed. Besides that, that's all I have. And the next item on our agenda is a closed meeting under 2.23711A1, discussion of personnel, county administration and fire department officer slates, and closed session under 2.23711A6, discussion of investment of public funds for a contract negotiation. And I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, can we add Wythe County Emergency Services personnel in that as well?
Does that fall under county administration?
It would, yes.
Okay.
So, all right. Entertain a motion to go into closed session under those two code sections.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry, second by Mr. Smith. Is there any discussion on the motion? Here.
Is that correct?
It's county administration. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're now in closed session. All right, I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry to have a second. Second. Have a second by Mr. Morgan. Any discussion? With no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now back in open session and on the record. For the record, I will note for the minutes that Ms. Lawson departed closed session at 9:18 p.m. Mr. Terry, if you'll read the certification.
Yes, sir. Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by the Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies. And only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening this closed meeting or heard, discussed, and are considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. And I'll make that a motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Terry, a second by Mr. Cook. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved. All right, I'll entertain any motions from the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the officer slates for Speedwell Fire Department and the Max Meadows Fire Department as presented.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion on the motion? All right, here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved. Is there anything else to come before the board, Mr. Bear?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Farthing?
Yes, sir.
Does any board member have anything?
No, Chairman.
Here now will be in recess until 6 p.m. on Thursday the 6th, 2025 for a work session with the planning commission.